So usually when I'm out and about in Japan, I don't pay much attention to what other tourists are doing. But this summer, oh man, there were plenty of things that I saw and heard about that made me want to go over and grab those people by the neck and shout, "What on earth are you doing?" See, the thing is, these visitors were making things much harder for themselves, and for no good reason. Because with just a little bit of thought and forward planning, they could have had a way easier time. And that's what you'll get if you just listen up and follow my advice. I'm Andrew. I've travelled extensively in Japan over the past 10 years, probably a bit too much if I'm honest. And let's start by talking about accommodation. Because I know what it's like. You're scouring Booking.com or Agoda, hunting furiously for the perfect hotel for the city you're visiting. But when it comes to hotels, there are always the cheaper deals beckoning like sirens for you to come and stay. Of course, it's tempting, the idea of saving a bit of money, although these places are usually a bit out of the city centre or a few subway or railway stops out on the map, or even in a nearby suburb. It's a good idea to stay at these bargain hotels, right? Wrong. Don't choose those places, just avoid them. In most cases, you'll be trading time for money, and time is such a precious resource on your trip. Let's say your hotel is 20 minutes away by subway from the major sightseeing spots. You should see that 20-minute subway ride as a 40-minute round trip, and if you're staying in the city for 5 days, that's over 3 hours spent on the subway that you'd probably rather spend sightseeing or souvenir hunting. But that's not all, because when it comes to figuring out places to stay, it pays to think like a commuter. Consider the rush hour. Most people heading into work are going towards the city centre, and often to major interchanges between subway and railway lines. The closer you get to these mega stations, the fuller the train's going to be in the morning and evening peaks. I'll give you an example. Gojo Station on Kyoto subway. It's slap bang in the middle of two major interchanges. Shijo, where it connects with the Hankyu Railway, and Kyoto Station, where it connects with JR, the Kintetsu Railway, the Shinkansen, just about everything else. When trains get to Gojo Station, they're already going to be packed so full they'll make sardine tins look positively spacious. So if you stay anywhere around here, good luck getting on a train in the rush hour. The solution to this is simple. Stay as close as possible to the spots that you want to see. And if you can, stay close to a major station so you're less affected by the rush hour at the start and the end of the day. But even if you follow this advice and choose some accommodation at the ultimate location, there's another thing that far too many people do, and it's absolutely infuriating. I mean, it's like people are willfully burning money when Japan has already laid out a remedy that's just about everywhere you look. Because let's say you've got to the airport and now you're on the bus or the train into the city, and you load up the confirmation email for your hotel and find that check-in doesn't open for another 6 hours. Oh no, what are you going to do? Well, since you're lugging around an enormous suitcase, it makes sense to head to Starbucks and grab a double Frappalappa Bambuccino and a leisurely lunch before checking in. Yes? No. This is just wrong on so many levels. I mean, you're wasting time and money, and that's before I get started on your choice of drink. Because Japan has a dead simple way of freeing up that 6 hours for proper sightseeing. It's called luggage lockers or luggage storage. Find a free one, get those cases off your hands, and start your sightseeing before you check in. It's really that easy. You can find lockers almost everywhere, especially at railway and bus stations, as well as at airports. They're usually charged by the day and range from 300 yen for something that will hold a small backpack to 1000 yen for a temporary home for your supersized suitcase. A few quick pro tips for you. When you stow your luggage away, take a few photos around the locker to help you find it later. In stations, it's a good idea to snap a shot of the nearest exit, because stations usually have more than one. If you can't find any free lockers, tourist information staff can usually help you find more. And if there really aren't any in the area, you can always try ECBO CLOAK. For a small fee, you get to leave your cases with shops and businesses near where you are. The link is in the description. It's worth mentioning, of course, that some hotels and guest houses let you drop off luggage before you check in, and they might also take care of it for a few hours after you check out too. It's worth contacting your accommodation before you arrive to see if you can do this, but be prepared for them to say no. Now, so far I've been talking about things that are going to suck hours out of your trip, but there's a way you can properly screw up your time in Japan that will also drain your wallet dry if you're not careful. So Japan has a stellar transport system. I mean, it's so fantastic that on the Shinkansen, for example, they measure average delays in seconds rather than minutes. And while that's good, it also means you can push your travel plans to the absolute limit. And that's what I did once. I decided to spend my last full day in Nagasaki, right at the western tip of Japan. My flight home was from Tokyo the following morning, but I'd done my homework. I knew the plan was going to work for getting to the airport in time, and I'd even have a few hours to spare. I just needed to take an overnight train. It was a great plan on paper, but even in Japan, the unexpected can happen, and this time that overnight train was catastrophically delayed. It ended up being 4 hours late. I missed the check-in at Narita Airport by an hour and a half, and I had to fork out a fat wedge of cash to get on the next flight home, which was the following day. So this is why I always recommend building buffers into your itinerary, not just at the end, but also at the start. Plan to spend the first and final days of your trip in the city closest to the airport you're using, and this will prevent a lot of headaches. Severe delays might be uncommon, but they do still happen, and if you're travelling in August, September and October, you might have your plans wrecked by a typhoon. In winter, heavy snowfall can stop the trains dead in their tracks, including the Shinkansen. Buffer days in these situations can really help save your trip. But even if you remember that weather can throw a wrecking ball at your itinerary, it's not going to solve your eyesight problem. What do I mean? Well, ever since the authoritarian nightmare of the recent past, attractions have been shifting to using advance booking almost as if paper were in short supply. Actually, it's more Japan's getting ready for when people are in short supply. Thank you, short-sighted politicians and population collapse. But anyway, advanced ticketing, infuriating as it is the flavour of the month right now. So if you want to visit Ghibli Park, you better get cracking because tickets are released 2 months in advance. It's the same thing with sumo tournaments. And Naoshima's incredible Chichu Art Museum, well, that's a 100% advance ticketing deal too. And since I haven't used this B-roll enough yet, remember that Nozomi Shinkansen have all reserved seats if you travel during these times of the year, but you can book up to a year in advance. It might be a pain to get organised, but it's the only way to go. Have a bit of foresight and also find out which days attractions regularly close. It's often Monday, so take care when you're making an itinerary. When I was working with one of my clients recently, they were planning to take a sightseeing train on a Monday, but when I checked the timetable, it looked like it wouldn't be running then, so I suggested moving it a day earlier when it would be. Basically, do a tiny bit of research and book ahead, unless of course you want to turn up at the gates only to find you can't get in or it's the wrong day. I mean, it's easy to overlook these things, so just go double check. And while we're talking about checking, let's get on to check-in, because imagine you're at the airport and instead of leaving your Ferrari F40 in the multi-storey car park, you drive it into the terminal and park it on the luggage conveyor. Of course, you need to arrange for a parking spot at every single hotel you're using, sure, but that's not a problem because Japan has tons of space. Space to spare, space for everyone. And yes, you're going to have plenty of chances to let that twin-turbo V8 monster sing on the expressway because, well, there are no speed limits there, except none of that is true. You can't afford the luxury of bringing a classic Italian sports car to Japan because it's just the wrong way to do transport. And guess what? The same thing is true with bringing a whop-off Gigasaurus suitcase. It's the wrong way to do luggage in Japan. Shinkansen are not designed for everyone to bring such idiotic, monster-sized luggage. They're designed for office workers doing business trips, and hotel rooms are generally smaller than they are in Europe and North America, so they're not designed with luggage storage in mind and don't come with a spare football field for the 3 months worth of clothes that you want to bring. See, Japanese tend to travel on the light side, and bringing lots of luggage is an utter liability when space is at a premium. That's why over the years I've gone from bringing a carry-on size case everywhere to fitting everything into a 14-litre backpack. I'd never go back. Travel is too convenient this way. I don't waste time with luggage lockers. I don't wait for elevators where often there is a queue. I don't need to worry about space on trains or the Shinkansen, and when I fly I can finish check-in at the very last minute and completely bypass the luggage carousel. And when I pack, it takes me minutes rather than days. My two secrets: merino wool and not bringing junk I'll never use. But if the extreme convenience of one bag travel isn't your particular cup of Earl Grey hot, try bringing a reasonably sized suitcase and just washing your clothes every couple of days. If you're a lazy git who can't manage that, then probably you have other problems that I can't help you with in this video. And if you're thinking to yourself, where am I going to put all the souvenirs? Well, you can either just take back small gifts or buy another cheap suitcase to fill up at the end of your trip. There is, of course, my personal favourite solution, which is to realise that life isn't about collecting stuff. Experiences are much more valuable than things, and when it comes to souvenirs for other people, the truth is that 90% of them probably couldn't give a flying monkeys about your trip, so just get them some snacks from the airport before you leave, because unlike knickknacks, when food is forgotten, it doesn't gather dust. But let's say that you're hopelessly addicted to shoes, or you've planned a different outfit for every day of your itinerary, and the result is you're lugging around 3 tons of your body weight in, well, extra weight. Good news, it could be worse. Here's how to have a really bad time. Pick a city, any city will do, at least a major one like Osaka, Fukuoka or Sendai. Then pick a hotel and check out at 7:30 in the morning. If you want to add some extra stress, pretend you're off home, so you're heading to the airport. The final step is to get on the subway. This is about the worst thing you can attempt on your trip. Even a carry-on suitcase does not play nice with rush hour. So your mobile closet is about as offensive as it gets in the eyes of other commuters. You're getting in the way of people who are just trying to get to work. So what should you do? If you're not in a hurry, just wait things out and get on when the rush hour has subsided. The first and only time I made this mistake, I went to a cafe for an hour. That was enough. But if you really must get somewhere ASAP, consider getting a taxi, or if you're heading to the airport, look into airport limousine buses that make stops near your hotel. Or alternatively, just send your cases ahead of you using luggage forwarding. And if you like this video, YouTube thinks you might like this video too. I'll see you next time.